देवराज सर नमस्कार.
सर नमस्कार. सर नमस्कार. जाडो पो छ त तर
होइन सर, सरले त्यहाँबाट त त्यसो भन्नुहुन्छ भने हाम्रो के गति होला यहाँ?
अहिले त्यहाँ त दिउँसो फेरि सूर्यनारायणले राम्रो सेवा दिएको छन् अरे नि त, यतातिर त दही भयो.
छैन छैन, सूर्यनारायणजी अहिले रिसाउनु भएको छ हामीबाट.
बादलले जित्नु भएको छ भन्नु पर्यो.
हो एक्ज्याक्टली एक्ज्याक्टली.
राम्रो. अब के हो, सूर्यनारायण कहिले आउनुहुन्छ थाहै भएन.
धेरै धेरै भएर मिटिङ भयो.
We have 2 more minutes and then we will start.
पूर्णकान्तजी नमस्कार.
नमस्कार.
म चैतन्य.
त्यही त धेरै पछि.
यो तपाईहरुको यस्तो भेटघाट नहुने हुनाले पनि हामीले बेला बेलामा यस्तो मौका जुटाइदिन्छौं के प्रत्यक्ष अनुहार हेरेर कुरा गर्ने.
गजब गजब
माहौल भन्छ नि.
हो नि. हैन यो जुमले त गजब गरेछ.
हो. कोभिडलाई त अलिअलि धन्यवाद पनि दिनु पर्यो नि, नत्र यो प्रचलनमै थिएन.
नेसेसिटी इज द मदर अफ इन्भेन्सन भन्छ नि.
Okay, I think it is now 6:15. That is 6 o'clock for Professor Chandra. And in the interest of time, I think we should probably begin. Many of us who are present today are very keenly concerned, passionately engaged in transforming the higher education in our respective countries. We all realize that the value, the role of higher education in the national development is something that we don't need to debate about. The question is, how can we best design the higher education so that we could best respond to the existing and emerging challenges of the society at large. That being the case, we had the honor of inviting Professor Chandra during our 4th consultative meeting, because it was a Zoom-based consultative meeting, so we had a very time crunching, so we could not do a justice to Professor Chandra. You know, we could allocate him only 15 minutes like we did for the rest of the speakers. But as we listened, 15 minutes wasn't sufficient at all. And to our loss, that is. So we promised by that time and reassured Professor Chandra that we would be very keen to listen to what you have to say and let us benefit from your very innovative approaches to the higher education. Here we are today, and it's a great honor and privilege for me to have him among us. And I also would like to welcome all the audiences who have kindly spared their valuable time and to came to attend this program today. Now, by way of introduction, Professor Pankaj Chandra is currently the Vice Chancellor and the President of the Board of Management of the Ahmedabad University. And before that, he was the Director of the Indian Institute of Management in Bangalore, where he was also Professor of Operation and Technology. Before that, he taught as a full-time faculty in the McGill University in Canada. And he was sought after by many, many institutions in the capacity of visiting professors, including University of Geneva in Switzerland, Wharton's School in the United States, International University of Japan, Cornell University in the United States, and Renmin University in China, that is. Professor Chandra did his Bachelor's of Technology from the Banaras Hindu University, which is well known to all of us, both in India and also most of the intellectuals in Nepal. And then he went to do his PhD from the Wharton's School in the University of Pennsylvania. But besides his academic accomplishment and contribution in higher education, Professor Chandra is very actively engaged in the campaign, so to say, to transform the higher education in India. He was the member of the Yaspal committee, which is the Government of India committee that was supposed to look after the rejuvenation of the higher education in India. And there are many. So, it would be such a wonderful credential that Professor Chandra has. And we very much look forward to listen to his experience, particularly Nil Kamal Chapagai from Nepal, from Eastern Nepal, who happens to be the faculty at the same university where Professor Chandra is the Vice Chancellor. And he told me after Professor Chandra took over the leadership, he brought such a transformative changes in that university. And that was one of the reasons why we could not resist the temptation to get associated with Professor Chandra, learn and benefit from his perspective. I'm sure the audience today will not be disappointed in that respect. So what I plan to do is I would like to invite Professor Chandra to give his perspective. Now we have more time today, Professor Chandra, so feel free. Maybe you would like to go for 45 minutes or an hour, and then for another half an hour or so, we will go for the question answer.
Perfect.
I would like to request the participant. You might like to, if you have some pertinent question, you could share in the chat box. And at the end of the talk, I might request some of the participants in the audience to give their perspective directly, even though they may or may not have sent their question or comment in the chat box. If that is okay with everyone, now let us give a big round of applause to Professor Chandra. And then the floor is yours, Professor Chandra. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Karki, and thank you, Neil, for giving me this opportunity to kind of brainstorm with you, and namaste to everybody, on this day. So here's what I would do. Maybe for about 15 minutes, let me talk about why did we feel the need to bring about change in higher education in India? What was happening in India? And you'll pardon my, if the comments I make which don't make sense to you, you can just pardon my ignorance about the educational system in Nepal. So I'd like to put the context of why we are trying to do what we are doing at Ahmedabad University by talking to you about a little bit of what was happening in India. And then talk to you about how did we go about constructing a strategic perspective in building a new kind of an institution, which is rooted in the cultural ethos of the country, but at the same time is a 21st century institution. So as Dr. Karki, you mentioned, I was very fortunate to become part of Yashpal committee. Yashpal, by the way, was one of the most celebrated scientists, space scientists in India. He was responsible for the space program and was Vice Chancellor of Jawaharlal Nehru University in Delhi, and an amazing humanist and educationist. And the task for that committee was to initially to look at the University Grants Commission. But we expanded with the help of the central minister at that time, expanded the role to look at rejuvenation of the entire higher education in the country. By the way, we ended up recommending that UGC should be closed down. And it just might happen this year, almost 11 years later. But the state was as follows. I mean, up until 1950s, I think may have been some of the glorious years of India's higher education. There were institutions that were publicly funded. There were institutions that were private, in many privately funded, and all of them were of phenomenal quality in terms of the kind of education that was happening, the faculty that was coming in there, and more importantly, the purpose of these institutions. This was also a time when Indian science was really very much global science. This is when very well-known scientists like Ramanujan in mathematics, Hargobind Khurana and Meghnad Saha in biology, the statisticians. I mean, it was really the field day, and their work was globally recognized very strongly. 50s to 80s, so 1950, 1980 was another second phase of Indian higher education, where post-independence, there was phenomenal expansion of education that was taking place, which required that institutions, more institutions were needed than the one that were available. And it led to increase of private institutions, many public institutions that came. This was also a period where I think India's the institutions that are considered highly capable today came into being, like the IITs and the IIMs and the Institute of Medical Sciences and Legal Sciences and so on and so forth. So 1950 to 1980s was a period when we moved away from doing university-based education to single discipline-based institutions. And they excelled. They excelled because it was felt at that point of time that they didn't carry the bureaucracy which was imposed upon the universities. And they became, even till today, they've become the islands of excellence in quite some ways. But in that process, we actually went ahead and weakened our multidisciplinary university system. And as the number of institutions grew from maybe 17 or 18 in 1920s to about 100 plus universities in 50s to 35,000 plus today, and over 100,000 colleges and so on and so forth. Now, 90s until 2020 is a third phase, which actually saw the most challenging times in higher education. The institutions grew very dramatically. There was hardly any resources that were allocated to academic institutions. I mean, in terms of budgets, all of education sees close to 2.5 to 3%, of which higher education may be seeing slightly less than 1% of investment of GDP. And as a result, the quality actually came under enormous stress. This was also a time when the economy was booming. From 1990s till about 2012, 2013, almost barring a few years, Indian economy grew at an average rate of between 8 to 9%. As a result, the number of private institutions grew simultaneously, and they were required. The students were getting jobs in these IT companies that were hiring like nobody's business. But it led to enormous changes. The first thing that happened was enormous regulatory overreach by both the government and the bureaucracy. There was enormous sarkarikaran of education, the bureaucratization of higher education. There was a secretary who would sit in Delhi or in state capitals who essentially was defining everything. They were defining which Vice Chancellor was getting selected. They were defining, and continue to do it in many which ways, what is the nature of the curriculum. They were defining rules and regulations and compensation and salary structure, everything else going forward. And this sarkarikaran actually led to many outcomes. The autonomy actually that Indian institutions enjoyed till about 1950s was probably completely lost by 1990s. There were few institutions like the IIMs, which actually didn't come under the purview of the University Grants Commission or other regulatory agencies, because they were not giving degrees, they were giving diplomas. And they were the only ones in quite some ways that were, that kept doing things that their constituency wanted to do. And since their faculty were very good and the students were finding very good jobs, not only in India, but around the world. And same was the case with IITs. They kept going, but the university system actually collapsed. in quite some ways. Because as far as autonomy is concerned, my feeling is it's either all or nothing. There's no such thing as partial autonomy. And that's really was a challenge and continues to be in Indian institution. The second part of the regulatory overreach was in its governance, that the board of governors were also decided by the government. And as a result, there were leaders in these institutions that actually didn't deserve to be there. It was as if anybody who had an education was an educationist. And that was a very major, it had a major implication, because political parties in the country were also taking advantage of the youth and had a great role to play in terms of distracting the youth from picking up skills and perspectives and citizenship abilities or love for learning, and got distracted quite dramatically in this process. The realization that we had was that many of these institutions were not performing, not because of anything else, but the structure was very inappropriate. And I'll give you an example of that. So Indian university, a public university, has a 4-tiered structure of governance. One is the court, and the court comprises of lots of people from the society, larger society. And over the years, these are people who had influence but had very little or nuanced understanding of higher education or education at all. Then came the Senate, which comprised largely of the faculty, senior faculty deans, and some from outside. The third body was academic council, which comprised of faculty and deans of schools that were making academic decisions. And then came the departments, the department committees. What happened was that these structures froze, and they were packed with people who actually were not necessarily the most concerned about the welfare of the university. And as a result, no decision could ever be made. In India, undergraduate education most often is done in independent colleges, and they are affiliated to large institutions, universities. And that was another very major challenge, that you had colleges that were providing money to institutions as being affiliated to them, fees. And as a result, universities wanted more and more colleges to be affiliated. A Bombay University, for instance, has 800 colleges affiliated. Now, I don't know how a university can even manage 800 institutions. What they did was they gave a central examination to all the students in these colleges and gave the degree of the university. But all teaching happened in these colleges. But on the other hand, the aspiration of the colleges was not met, because it was the university that was defining the curriculum. The university was defining everything else. So there was a logjam in these institutions. And as a result, structure was responsible for outcomes and performance. There's this whole theory in economics called structure, conduct, performance. Any structure defines the behavior which leads to outcomes. And I think we saw that happen in India. And as a result, over 90, I mean, between 80s and up to 2020, you saw an unaccountable university, and there was organizational decay. There was leadership challenges. Leaders were brought in who were most subservient. And over time, what we are seeing in many institutions is that the leadership is no different from the bureaucratic mindset that the government and the bureaucracy carry. Now, when the numbers are very large and you want to control centrally, the only way you control is through rules. And that was what was happening. The rules were being set in the ministries, in state government capitals or Delhi, and they were being implemented by these VCs just like ordinary clerks, rather than putting processes in place, which are ways to essentially make decisions better rather than following rules. It also made decision-making very complex. And over the years, we saw that the execution and the managerial system that is required in an organization, the university, really weakened tremendously. To an extent that the only set of people who had institutional memory are the administrators, and not the senior administrators, but junior administrators. And that actually led to change in culture of universities. There was once, I was having a chat with one of the very well-known industrialists and a very kindred one in this country. And she said that, I'll be so delighted if I can get all students who hang outside college to at least come inside. And that talked about the nature of teaching and learning, the extent of vibrancy in these institutions, decision-making processes, the conversation between various levels of the institution, and also the role of the leadership. There was a time, since you mentioned, Dr. Karki, about Banaras Hindu University, I know it holds a special position in many of hearts of people in Nepal. But there was a time when 100 years ago, in 1916 or 15, when Mahatma Gandhi once came to BHU. And he openly, on a forum where that time, the Governor General was sitting, the Vice Chancellor was sitting, the Chancellor was sitting, he actually openly exhorted the students to protest against the university administration on a certain issue. And everybody listened to it. They may not have agreed, but it happened. Today, that process has vanished from many of these institutions, and which has led to development of a culture of uninquiry. There was an issue now of copying. Okay, let's see, so-and-so institution does something and let me just copy it, rather than saying, let me learn from others and let me design my own way of doing things. You have students who are very underprepared when they come. You have students who are in very narrow disciplines. In fact, many times I have argued that why do you need a university? And I'm saying in an Indian context, because when you come to study physics, you don't learn anything about history or geography or any other discipline. Neither do faculty engage across different departments. Why are they co-located in the same place? They could go anywhere else, and nothing would change in terms of teaching and learning, because the student comes, studies physics for 3 years and goes away without getting to understand what is the meaning of a universe of learning and what are other disciplines that impact on making the physics learning even better. So there were lots of issues regarding research, regarding classroom engagement. We were all teaching to examination rather than teaching to learning. And that's been the state of affairs for quite some time. And everybody, of course, from the society, the bureaucracy, everybody has been concerned about it. I must also say that there are islands of excellence. India is also a nation which has at least 20 institutions in top 200 list. There are management institutions that are in top 20 in the world, and so on and so forth. But islands of excellence don't make a nation, and I think we were all concerned, because And all of us were asking this question: whose life was education and educational institutions changing? The society was least concerned. Parents were only concerned till the time their kids were seeking admission or were studying. After that, they had no relationship with the larger society, with the larger institution. Institutions also were not making changes and doing things to the curriculum, way of teaching, which would essentially change the way things would improve or change lives of people or address challenges that the society were facing. And it was a challenge because we had, I think, messed up with the soul of academia, which is the faculty. We've messed up with students, we've messed up with teaching and learning, and consequently research. And it was against this backdrop that there was a lot of churn in the country over the last decades, that this committee was set up in 2009. And I had the fortune of going around the country, visiting almost 30 odd universities, talking to people, students, administrators, teachers, and trying to figure out what did it mean to rejuvenate an academic institution. And we came out with this report, and that was a great learning experience for all of us. And it actually became the backdrop of the new education policy that has been brought into place in 2020 in India to completely rehaul and change the way things will happen. It's a phenomenal policy. I must say, it's very forward-looking. It amalgamates learning and suggestions that many committees over the last 30, 40 years have come to place. It looked at what was happening around the world and has come up. Of course, the proof of the pudding is in eating. So we have to see how well we execute. So this is a backdrop to my conversation, which is now I moved from what was happening in India to what was happening at Ahmedabad University. I must also say that I was fortunate to be a professor at IIM Ahmedabad for 15 years before and saw the processes in place that were working. And I also got an opportunity to lead another IIM in Bangalore, and I could see what did it take to build an institution that was very differently. And all of that told me a few things. So let me first move to the Ahmedabad experience. But first, let me say, what did we learn from the institutions of the past and this history and this process of public and private institutions in this country? By the way, I'll be amiss if I don't mention that the private institutions have played a phenomenal role, both in educating large number of people and also in destroying education. There's a large number of private institutions that don't deserve to exist. But at the same time, there are a large number that have actually provided the bulwark of higher education in this country. So what did we learn, which we then brought to bear in designing a strategy for Ahmedabad University? The first thing was governance. We were very clear that we had to get the governance right, because it were, by the way, Ahmedabad University is a private university set up by the state of Gujarat. It gets a little bit more freedom compared to public institutions, but it also has certain constraints. And I'll come to explain that in a minute. So one is governance. And governance, both outside and governance inside. And I've written a fair bit, and I'll be happy to share both a copy of the book as well as some papers I've written on aspects of governance with you. And that involved building trust, developing a strategy, building a communication perspective, developing a team that would execute appropriately, establishing incentives, building a process orientation rather than rule orientation, getting the structure right, helping build leaders, establishing expectations and accountability, and putting review and renewal processes that will make sure that one is not sliding down and making autonomy count in quite some ways, to ensure that whatever culture we will build, it doesn't slide down. So that was one aspect that we learned as weaknesses in older system. And we decided that we will at least not make those mistakes that the institutions of the past have made. We might make our own new mistakes, but we'll not make the same one. So that was one. Governance was one. The second was, how do we engage with the state, the bureaucracy, and the political system? That was the second one, because we saw that they were playing an important role in defining the health of educational environment. The third thing we felt was there was a need to build a consensus on what does a university stand for and what is the role of different stakeholders. I mean, these are thoughts that may have gone in at the time of establishment of many older institutions, but I saw them dissipate very dramatically. So people went in all different directions, and they were not necessarily aligned to pull the institution in a much robust manner. The fourth thing that we learned was to define that we must define a purpose of the institution. Otherwise, there's nothing around which the larger group rallies, and at the slightest of an instance, the entire structure collapses. The fifth thing we learned was that we must remain under the radar and allow our work to speak. And the last thing we learned was many of these older institutions had lost their aspiration. And this is over and above the fact that what we talked about in your last meeting, everybody pointed towards excellence and merit and all of those. So that's, in a nutshell, is what we learned from how the Indian higher educational system had navigated. Now, coming to Ahmedabad University. So Ahmedabad University was established by a trust in Western India, in the state of Gujarat, which is, for those of you who may not have visited or come this side, is 1 hour south of Delhi by flight and 1 hour north of Bombay. It's a very, the state is very entrepreneurial and perhaps one of the most industrial states of this country. The trust was set up by nationalist leaders in 1932. And it was set at the behest of Sardar Patel, and to bring higher education to the state of Gujarat, which at that time was part of Bombay Presidency and did not have a college. It had actually one college in the city. Over the years, over the last 80 plus years, this trust has played a phenomenal role in bringing many institutions that have become probably some of the best institutions of India. I'm Ahmedabad National Institute of Design, Physical Research Laboratory, which is for high altitude physics, CEPT, which is School of Planning and Architecture, and so on and so forth. These are probably in their disciplines the best institutions of India. And Ahmedabad University was set up in 2009, which was perhaps the most ambitious project of the trust. And it had people leading the trust who are very nuanced in their understanding of how they enable an institution, why autonomy is very crucial, and why resources are very important. So over the years, they've put an endowment, a large endowment, perhaps which is one of the largest endowment of any institution in India, which provides us with stability into the future, and also gives a certain amount of credibility to people who want to come and work at this institution. Now, so that's the history of Ahmedabad Education Society. Ahmedabad University actually started very orthogonally to what it is today. So in there may be some lessons of how to transform existing institutions as well. The trust had several undergraduate colleges and one graduate management school that it used to run. And the desire was to bring all these institutions together to form the university. There was a school of science, there was a pharmacy college, there was one that was doing accounting, there was one that was doing business, another one which was doing MBA, and so on and so forth. Fortunately, they were all affiliated to Gujarat University, the state's public institution, and they refused to part with them because these were their best colleges. And only a few which were self-financing, the management schools, came in and became part of the university. That's how the university started. And then the vision of the founders at that time was to bring in centers like heritage management, which is led by Neil, schools of engineering, and a starting program around life sciences. But it carried legacy faculty who were very different, who were very good teachers, but were not necessarily the researchers that would make a significant part of a research university. So in 2015, the board took a call and said, we now need to move orthogonal. We need to build a liberal education-driven research university. And which now meant that many things had to be done right. And I'm now going to share with you our journey over the last 6+ years. So first things was that we had to find a partnership with the board, and we prepared a 15-year plan, which we said to the board that if you buy this, and if this is jiving with the interest of the trust, then only it makes sense for a large number of people to come and become part of it. And they were looking for something like that. So it became very easy. That was about the time when some of us joined the institution. And I'm Bangalore. I was really looking to be part of an institution which we could build for my younger colleagues. I was hoping to find and build an institution where I would have wanted to work when I returned back to India in early 90s. And it meant a few things. And it meant that it had to have a vibrant culture. It had to have a unique bubble and a culture of its own. It had to be research driven. It had to be student-centric and so on and so forth. Now, there were two ways in which we could have taken this forward. One was to say, let's go incremental and slowly build it. We actually chose the other way around. We said, we need to actually signal what is the aspiration of the university. And if we have to fail, then we must fail.
Mute गरिदिनुहोस् है please.
And we were to say that if we are to fail, then we should fail doing bigger things. And we also felt at that juncture that we should not speak until unless and speak in public unless we've done something substantial. So we were very clear that we wanted our work to speak. Now, we had, as I mentioned earlier, we had realized what were strengths and weaknesses of existing institutions. But one other realization that we had was that we would not be able to go past these very good institutions if we were to copy them. Because these were institutions that had history of 100 years, 100 plus years, some 70, 80 years, and they had built a brand of their own. But we saw weaknesses in them. We saw many challenges, and we felt that we had to define the purpose and the direction of this institution very differently. And then we will be able to definitely go past them. And today, I think we are in that kind of a situation where we are going past many of them quite rapidly. Now, one other realization that we've had when we were doing our brainstorming in early years on the purpose and direction was a recognition that really complex problems were facing our society. There were many, many challenges. From climate change to water, to health, to education, to transport, to infrastructure, to urbanization, and many big questions were there in the society, and academia in India was just not addressing them adequately. And many areas, the Indian economy was also changing. Many areas that were in the domain of the government were now becoming very central to the existence of the private. And that transition was simultaneously taking place, which meant that with these new challenges, new regulatory move, new economic direction, it meant that there were going to be in future new opportunities. And I'll give an example of one or two of them. These new opportunities would require new skills, new technologies, new perspective. And we felt that's where we ought to be going. I'll give you an example. I was on board of one of the major IT companies in Bangalore, and there was a situation that came there. This team of young computer scientists had been doing a project for Zurich Airport to essentially schedule the gates, which airplane would land at which gates. And they had to develop a software to do that. And they'd done a phenomenal job, but the software bombed. The software bombed not because of technical problem, but because the team and others had failed to understand how that in many of these airports, the money that they make from food and beverage is much higher than takeoff and landing fees. So if they had planned strategies, business strategies of pulling larger planes closer to where the food stall was located, they would have made more money. Now, the realization was that single disciplines were no longer going to solve large complex solutions. This was our fundamental realization. Whether it is what we can see in the case of the pandemic, if the biologists could solve the problem by themselves, we should have. I mean, they've played a phenomenal role because every country has amazing set of doctors and biologists, but they needed engineers, and they needed lawyers, and they needed business folks, and they needed political scientists, and they needed sociologists, and they needed psychologists, and everything else to bring this big challenge in control. Now, you can't teach all these things to a single person, but can we make them appreciate some of it? That was the question and the realization that we had for us. So first thing that we did was we laid out the aspiration of the university. And we said, where is it that we want to go? And we clearly laid out exemplars around the world over a 15-year period. And we said, this is how milestones that we will cross on this highway over the period. And we've actually started to cross several of them. We laid out a purpose, where there was vision, mission, all those things. We just actually threw it out and laid a one single sentence purpose. And the purpose was that purpose was continuous progress of self and society. You can't reform and change the society for better if we don't change ourselves. And I think this was very, very pertinent for us. We laid a positioning for ourselves, a brand positioning of a serious academic center, a place where ideas are born, and one that solves problems of larger society. We established a strategy for ourselves. So this is all planning that is being done upfront with the group of people who were present at that point of time. Neil was very much central to that thinking. And these, we laid out our pillars of strategy, which was student centricity, congregation of the meritorious, impact through research, high performance organization, and experimentation. We in fact said that we should have an expiry date on everything. If you achieve something, then I think that should expire and we should be ready to change and move forward. And we felt that's the most powerful observation that we had about ourselves, experimentation, that we are always going to be in beta, always be changing, never stable. And I think that's really something that has helped us move forward. Now, we developed a code of conduct for ourselves. We developed certain non-negotiables where we said, this is where we will fight amongst ourselves. And that's how we started now our journey. We had some challenges. The challenge was that we had one set of faculty with one set of capabilities, but we wanted to build another kind of institution with another kind of capabilities. And we had to, we were very keen to keep these faculty because they carried another strength. They were phenomenal teachers. They engaged with students very well. So we created a pathway of growth for them. But 2016 onwards, we actually went and created a research university framework for ourselves. And they were as follows. One, and I'll talk about each one of them. We said that several things we needed to put in place, and which would actually help us develop this kind of new environment that we were building. The first was institutional focus, to build institutional focus, which was complex problems don't lend themselves to disciplinary solutions. We must be interdisciplinary. which is easier said than done. But I'll give you an example of how we did it over the 6 years. We were going to be a liberal education-driven research university. We were going to be a serious academic center, and we were going to be an exemplar in governance. The second thing was governance. We said we reorganized the entire university, and we said we will only have schools and no departments, because departments silo you down and they don't allow conversations across different disciplines. Then how are we going to solve larger challenges of climate change if a physicist and an environmental historian and an engineer don't come together? We developed lots of faculty-driven shared governance. So it's a relatively flat hierarchical structure. We gave up and didn't have a court. We don't have a Senate. We could establish our highest educational body, which is Academic Council. And we now are in the process of slowly building decision-making through committees and taking decision-making down and preparing new sets of leaders in the institution for the future. As part of governance, we also felt communicated that we were very transparent. One messaging was, anybody could ask us anything. We will have an answer for you. It may not be an answer that one may like, but we will never say, we will not answer this question. And we put out every data outside. Even our annual report, which we put out publicly, has our entire balance sheet. Rarely would you find Indian institutions doing that. And what it did was, it started building credibility for our governance system, most importantly, within our own internal stakeholders. They felt that they knew what was happening, and they were part and parcel of decision making. And which led to involvement of groups into thinking about issues and so on. So first was our institutional focus that we transformed. Second was we changed our governance structure, and to a point that we talk a lot before we take decisions. A single person may finally take a decision, but the person consults, and that process of consultation actually makes everybody feel that they have contributed to decision making. This is their university. They own it because they're part and parcel of that decision. The third thing was we started to transform our faculty, because that's the soul of a university. If we get that right, I think the university would move. We had, as I mentioned, a legacy faculty, which are great teachers, but we wanted to build those who are great teachers and great researchers. So we started global hiring, and we've hired close to, in last about 4 years, we must have hired probably more than 100 faculty from outside India and from best of institutions, from best of institutions, from Stanford, MIT, Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, Yale, Columbia, to best of institutions in India, Institute of Science, I'm Bangalore, I'm Ahmedabad, and IITs and so on and so forth, and in Europe. And that was magical, because it brought in new energy, it brought in new voices, it brought in people who were very competent. And they all came because they were seeing a new institution being built with a very new ethos, and they could contribute towards its development. We also brought in non-Indians. Today, about 6 to 7% of our faculty may be non-Indian. And our hope is that going forward over the next 5 years, 15% to 20% of our faculty would be non-Indians. And that would help us change the culture, that conversation, and also make this institution visible globally. We used help of many of our friends throughout the world in this process. We also then laid out, so we put out resources. And we said, okay, we will help you with teaching resources, research resource. So that was an important incentive structure there. But we also laid out accountability. We're probably one of the only 2 or 3 institutions that have a US style tenure process where you get confirmed only after 6 years, and with phenomenal evaluation process. And so your job becomes permanent only after 6 years. And we laid out strong expectations, provided academic autonomy. Even where we were finding that things were not correct, we allowed people to make their own decisions. We pointed things out, but we allowed them to make decisions about academic. And we were riding on initiative of faculty. We were doing annual planning and reviews. So what we did was we took the governance philosophy and brought it in a very strong managerial perspective. We hired people in the leadership positions from across the world. Some very excellent set of people came as deans, and we were able to fortunately be on the same page and build this world of governance. The third thing that we simultaneously started to work on in 2016 was innovation in our programs. We said, this is where we will go past all existing institutions. And we said that our education needs to be broad, needs to be deep, but more importantly, needs to be interdisciplinary. And we felt that it's interdisciplinarity which makes your deep deeper. And there were 3 things that we put as essentials in our program. One was interdisciplinarity. Now, I want to take a minute to just explain what it meant. I'll take another 5 minutes and then I'll stop and open up for questions. But it meant that lots of places around the world and global institutions are all broad. Everybody takes courses. You want to study physics, but you'll do humanities, social sciences, and everything else. They become broad, but they rarely connect the dots between various disciplines, because that connecting of dots has not happened in the classroom. And that's what we did. We established a program where we brought faculty from different disciplines to come together to teach. And our undergraduate program today, I think, is at the cutting edge, not only in India, but globally. It has a foundation program, a compulsory core that everybody does, but it is not centered around disciplines. It's centered around 6 domains that we want every student of Ahmedabad to learn. And these are data science and communication, 2 skills, 2 areas that build perspective, constitution and civilization, and behavior, individual and group behavior, and 2 areas of innovation, materials, new materials, and biology and life. So every student engages with this. So we are multidisciplinary, we are flexible. Students actually admitted to the university and they change their majors from one to another depending on how they discover their own passion. And we are interdisciplinary. But these 6 domains that I mentioned to you are not taught as courses. They are embedded in 4 studios that represent challenges of our time. And these studios are climate change, water, democracy and justice, and neighborhood, which is a proxy for urbanization. So through water, we will teach data science, we will teach communication, we will teach biology and life, we will teach materials, and we will teach behavior, and we will teach a constitution and civilization. And that's how this integrative thinking, the connecting of dots, and it's taught by faculty who come from multiple disciplines. So that's, I think, a very major transformation that we've done. We found that students are very transformed. Their thinking changes. They are now critical thinkers. They talk differently. They are taking their own responsibility for learning. We also have general education, which provides broad education. We have majors and minors. So you can come and study physics and also do history. You can come and study history and also do general engineering. And everybody participates in volunteerism to give yourself and change who you are in the society. So the three pillars of our teaching is interdisciplinarity, experiential learning, which is learning, and research thinking. Research thinking is about learning to ask the right questions. And that is what is completely transforming the engagement of the students, the engagement of faculty. It's now starting, these are early days, but starting to change how our faculty are thinking about research by putting problems at the center, and then trying to develop theories and ways of going about solving them. Our research enterprise is now very robust. We have a very strong PhD program that we're building. We're expanding it. We provide startup support to them, and we're raising resources to support it. And the last bit that we are working on now is student experience and student engagement, and that being the center around which much of teaching and learning, around which the research enterprise is built, so that we can build the next generation of researchers and scientists and social scientists and business folks who will be actually thinking more broadly, more deeply, connect the thoughts, and at the same point of time, solve problems, not only of the societies around them, but of the world. So that's, in a nutshell, our journey. It has been a very phenomenal and very satisfying journey. And I must say that it is a work of hundreds of people. There was a group of about 20 odd that were thinking through in initial stages, but as we progressed, I think almost every new person who came in brought in a new perspective. And I think we are on to something very special. We know where we want to go. We have no clouds in front of us. We know our path. And we are walking that path. It will take us several years to reach that goal, but we are actually climbing steps quite regularly. So I'm going to stop here and be happy to take your comments or ask or answer questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you, Professor Chandra. It has been a very, very enlightening talk, as we expected. We were tempted, as I said earlier, to get this expanded version of the talk, so that we could learn more about the process, the experiences, and the lessons learned during the process in Ahmedabad. As you are well aware, being not so happy about the existing model of higher education in Nepal, and the appreciating the discrepancy between the challenges that the nation is facing and the kind of human resources we are producing, our academic institutions are producing in a very stereotypical way, in a very orthodox, very dogmatic, kind of a rigid framework. A group of academics and the professionals got together and reflected on it, and that is what led us to take the initiative of establishing this University of Nepal. Not that we have made the full prescription as yet as to how are we going to respond to all these big challenges. However, we are very much open to learn and benefit from the experiences both within the country, but also within the region and the world at large. And therefore, the experiences and the initiative that you have taken in Ahmedabad University resonates very well with our own thinking in here. That is what we think should happen, even though some of the concept that you have described needs further elaboration, and we will do that in the future.
Sure.
Like the way that you have developed the curriculum, the fundamentals, and this 6 domain, and how you try to bring the interdisciplinarity in practice. That is extremely unique in our part of the world. I mean, this is being practiced elsewhere. So this we shall learn in the months and years to come. Before I open the floor, I would like to request Professor Leknath Sharma, who was the Vice Chancellor of our Open University, the first of its kind in Nepal. He was the founder Vice Chancellor, and had to deal with all kind of challenges. So I was wondering if Professor Sharma would like to share some of the experiences that Professor Chandra has mentioned could be adapted in dealing with our own challenges of the new coming institutions. Professor Sharma, please share your perspective.
Thank you, sir. I am not as much as ready to express everything today, but however, I listened from Professor Chandra that we are in the same cultural and same sorts of academic environment, and the way he took a step ahead to bring transformation in higher education in his own institution as well as a member of the team. He did whatever he expressed from his experience of 50 more universities in India, and synthesized these sorts of experiences and applied those things in governance, management, and managing different disciplinary sort of things. Not keeping these things in disciplinary boundary, but making it mostly project and problem-based learning approaches, and connecting 6 different areas all together. That's a very new innovation in the field of higher education in Nepal. And this university, which we are going to establish very soon, then has to learn these things since from the very beginning. Talking to my own experiences in establishing Nepal Open University, I do have lots of obstacles, I have to say, and also there were some inspirations too while working together with different faculties and the different policy people and the senior professors. So that was one thing, and the main problem is related to the governance, as Professor Pankaj, the Vice Chancellor, expressed today, that in governance, if we are not autonomous, so the definition of autonomy, the context and the scope of autonomy may be different, but one level of autonomy is required to the university leaders. And another important thing I noticed is that there should not be political interventions in the governance system. So it should be autonomous in the sense that government can provide funds to the university, but the programs, academic activities, research, faculty enrollment, and as well as the student enrollment, all should go within the decision, within the decision power of the university governance. So I fully agree on the sorts of autonomy Professor Pankaj expressed today. it was a bit difficult situation in Nepal, because we do have the University Grants Commission, we do have Ministry of Education, and that is also there too. And then we have lots of rules and regulation, and one rules and regulation say one thing and the other say another thing. And the university has established its own rules and regulation, and university has established its own rules and regulation based upon its act, and the act has given on sorts of autonomy, and based upon that autonomy we provision to bring our own rules that has autonomy to work together within the faculties and within the schools, within the departments. But sometimes it happens that the higher authority, the ministry or the UGC or the higher authorities, they bring another sort of intervention, and then that is being difficult even to the university leadership to go ahead as required for the quality education and for the inclusive sorts of education, especially in higher education, ensuring quality. So what I listened today from Pankaj, his experience is a very live experience, and his experience and his practices could be very, very important for us to initiate Nepal University of Nepal, which we are going to establish very soon. So thank you very much for giving this opportunity, and I will thanks to Professor Pankaj for sharing his own experiences and his intellectuality, as well as his all sort of experiences related to academia as well as the management and governance. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and salute to the Professor Pankaj, Vice Chancellor, sir, to the Ahmedabad University. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Sharma. I do see some of the question mentioned in the chat box. I do not know if
I can take that if you want.
Yeah, please. Would you mind doing that?
Yeah.
There are several.
No, I'm happy to take.
Bora from University of New Mexico.
I'll start with the first one and just go down. First one question says, the government always tries to interfere in university administration. What may be the solution to it? You know, it is true. What you're saying is so true. But if our challenge is that we don't have a fort properly defended from within. And somewhere we need to make the governance within very, very strong. If we do that, then most interference, which will continue, we can probably manage it. Now, how there's some ideas that we have on how we've been managing first, and for a new institution, I think it's very maybe useful. One is to get the charter right. The charter of the university is most important, because much of autonomy is built into that charter, and the simpler the charter, the easier it is to execute in future. Second is in having a board of governors who actually can do a great play with the government and with administration. So you need to have tall people in the board who actually can call up, pick up a phone, call people and say, hey, you should back off, or this is not good for us, and be able to at equal terms, because the role of that board is very crucial in keeping this interference at away. The third really is internal governance. It's often at times, it's actually the insider who makes life most miserable by actually creating and opening the door for others to come in. So if that internal governance within is very robust, and there are many ideas I'll be very happy to share with it over a period of time. And then I think it becomes absolutely terrific way to manage this. We won't be able to prevent interference, but we can at least manage it. And the last, which I think will get built at University of Nepal over a period of time, will be students. I think the alumni, many a times, if we engage with them very well right from beginning, will form a very strong way of of challenging things. And I saw it at IIM Ahmedabad. The alumni are so strong. You know, IIM Ahmedabad, the alumni today sit as chairmen and CEOs of boards globally. And when they speak many a times on issues in support of the institution, actually everyone listens, or at least they back off. So that's an answer to that. To Alok Bohra's question, Professor Bohra asks, can you shed some light if your institution's academic program grows through periodic academic evaluation like we do in the department? Yes, we do. We've actually very well established review processes. Both the programs get reviewed periodically. We don't have department. The schools get reviewed periodically, and the university gets reviewed. In fact, we're just getting ready for a 10-year university review. So we put those processes in place. And then what we do is, so these are external reviewers, the reviews that we do. But internally, we review every year. End of summer, we actually have every school dean presenting to the entire university administration. In fact, every center head and everybody about the processes, what's happened, what worked, what didn't work. And it's a very open forum. So yes, I think this is really a cornerstone of robust governance and improvement over a period of time, so that we don't laud on things, small things that we may have done and we think that we've done great stuff. We need to get others to point this to us. Mr. Ariel says, you mentioned that it was so important to engage with the government. Can you kindly share how you actually engage with government? So, you know, one thing that we have found, and this is just my limited experience and not necessarily a universal story, is remaining under the radar, not really being an institution that essentially jumps on the government every second day. And till the time we become robust and strong, and till the time the government's perspective changes. So that has helped us. So at times, many times the government tend to ignore us also, which we like very much. The second and a more powerful thing that we've been doing is we've been actually working with government on various projects of theirs. So the government, if there's a need of a government to do things, then both the university and the faculty and the leadership actually support programs that are aligned with the objectives of the university. We, by the way, have never brought until now a single politician on campus. And but it's just us. For some others, this may not work. But I think if we, over a period of time, they're good people in government, when they start to see what you're doing, and you're not overtly critical of them, though many of our faculty are through their research and writing, then they will start to see you very differently. So that's how we have managed. And then we have a board that actually engages with government very well. They're business people, they're people from government there, through who we seek help if we are in trouble at times. Mr. Pahari says, are majority of your students self-paying? If so, are the costs affordable for a student from an average income family in India? Wondering if the population at large is able to benefit from your excellent education, or is it mostly people from upper income bracket? I think it's a very important question. We upfront decided that we are going to be need blind. And two of our board members have come up and have said that if you ever run out of funds for supporting students, we will provide the remaining to you. And that's a great consolation. We've not gone to them yet. But we promise funding to everybody who needs it. And so that's point number one. Point number two, our fees are definitely higher than what a public institution's fees are in humanities and social sciences. In professionals programs, the public institution fees are very high, so there's no problem at all. But our fee are a little bit higher on average. What we've done is we've actually set a goal for ourselves to bring in somewhere around 15 to 20% students who are first-time learners, who we fund completely. We bring in people who, we search for people who require financial aid, but at the same time are enormously talented and bright, and we fund them completely. We don't want to be in a situation where people who need funding don't feel that they can even make it. We've not reached that stage yet, but we need to be very careful that our fees is not so high that people just look at it and say, oh, I'll never make it there. So that's the situation. Having said that, one must realize that good education costs money. And if we don't put in resources, we will not be able to actually provide high quality education. We will not be able to get very good faculty. We will not be able to buy equipment. We will not be able to equip our library. And they're very expensive, as all of you know. It's very tough. The library facilities, making a library really cutting edge is so expensive. And so for us, it's an endowment which helps along with the fee. Fee is not a very major component of our overall income. It's we get a substantive amount in terms of our interest from our endowment. Our endowment today stands at 1,000 crores and going up to 2,000, and interest on that is helping. And I will very strongly recommend that the University of Nepal starts to build an endowment right from beginning, because it will go very long ways, and it will also provide you freedom and autonomy. That if a day is reached when you don't need money from government into the future, I think you will have a lot of autonomy at your disposal. Joachim says that, would you be able to support? Yes, of course, we're happy to help in any which way. And the book is in English. Yes, it is in English. And it's available on Amazon in Europe, in India, but I'll be very happy to send a copy to you, no problem. Then Mr. Ariel says that it was really critical to offer interdisciplinary program. May I request you to please tell us, how do you combine different disciplines in the degrees? That's a very, very interesting question. So we started to develop new kinds of majors or new specializations. And we've created some very interesting ones, like, so we don't have very traditionally majors like philosophy or things of that kind, but we have a major called philosophy, history, and language. You can do a BA with a major in philosophy, history, and language. You can do, rather than having a major in anthropology or sociology or political science, we actually combine them together into a major, interdisciplinary major called social and political sciences, which actually looks at a society in a more interdisciplinary manner. So it's in this process, we've combined different disciplines in creating degrees, but we also offer courses which are of multiple majors. Then Mr. Adhikari, thanks very much. If you liked it, please do come and visit us. He says, can I visit you? Of course, by all means, we'll be very, very happy to take you around and show you and even share with you any material that we have or curriculum that we've developed. In that, as I said, we are very open to sharing anything. In fact, we are putting together a book. Hopefully it should come out this summer on our foundation program, and I'm happy to share that with you as we kind of go along. Okay, I think you have a faculty handbook that outlines duties and code of conduct. We have a faculty handbook, but we don't believe in outlining duties, because we feel that the soul of this institution are faculty. But we have processes. We've outlined processes for governance of what our faculty does, how we enable them, how we support them, what is expected of them, what is the code of conduct. All of those things we have in a faculty handbook, which is shared with every faculty, and it's regularly updated. It's a thick document that we have on our website, on our internal net as well. Then it says that you seem to be following an American system. Do you have a core curriculum with liberal arts courses required for every undergrad? Yeah, it's actually, yeah, you can say it's a core American system, but you know, this system is a very traditional South Asian system. If I look at the a course catalog of BHU from 1929, it was not very different to bring in liberal arts education along with sciences and others. But in a contemporary sense, you're right. So we have a core curriculum and we call it the foundation program. Then we have liberal arts courses, not only liberal arts courses, but today we feel that you need to have liberal arts courses and also courses in professions that everybody should do. So what we call is general education requirement. 10 courses that everybody has to take that comprise courses in humanities, social sciences, performing and visual arts, in sciences, in mathematics, in life sciences, and in technology. So we think professions and liberal arts need to come together today in a very integrated way. And then you have the major and minor. So in that sense, Professor Boara, yes, it's the structure is quite similar.
I think you have the last question, Professor Chandra, about the research funding from Dr. Umed Poon.
Yes. So what percentage of your revenue do you put aside for research? Do you faculty member get access to startup seed grants for research? We set aside, today our research expenditure is somewhere to the tune of 23% of our overall income. And we think we want to grow it to about 50%. And it will take some time, but perhaps with some endowment and some funds that we raise. By the way, we raise a lot of money through research grants from various agencies within the country and around the world. So, I mean, on an average, and especially in sciences and engineering, we raise almost every faculty member in science and engineering has an external research grant. And we are slowly building partnerships globally and raising grants through European Union and through foundations in the US as well. Do new faculty member access to Start Street Fund? Answer, yes. We give up to 25 lakhs, which is 2.5 million rupees. Is it 250,000 rupees as seed grant, equivalent of a seed grant, a startup grant. And then we have seed grants that we give to faculty. We have travel grants, we have conference travel, and then we have something called Faculty Development Fund, which every faculty gets for their own use, for buying books, for becoming members of professional societies, for just picking up a flight ticket and traveling from one place to another if they want to meet a colleague. So yes, there is an enterprise that supports the faculty research and their academic endeavor. So,
yeah. Great. I think Dr. Amina Singh, would you like to say something? Amina is our head of our academic planning unit.
Thank you, Dr. Karki. I'm still recovering from COVID, so Excuse my voice if it breaks. No, thank you so much, Professor Chandra. I was just writing a comment that you've actually answered a lot of questions I've had in your talk itself, and I think what you shared today gives us a really good framework for us to hold our discussions in the future, especially with regards to the academic program. So thank you so much, and we'll definitely reach out to you in the future for more.
Most welcome. Happy to
Sure.
help in whichever way we can.
The Dr. Purnakanta Adhikari, who wanted to visit your campus, is a very senior educational personality in Nepal, well known nationally.
Wonderful.
And he's one of our advisors. So he wanted to, before he gives a good advice, he wanted to see how you are doing.
Most welcome. Most welcome.
Yeah, we have in the audience our Mr. Lilamani Pondel, who used to be the former Chief Secretary of the government of Nepal. He wanted to, he wants to share some perspective.
Sure.
Please, Lilamani sir.
Thank you, Kargi sir. As Professor Amina Vaidya mentioned that she is recovering from COVID, I am also recovering from COVID. I beg a pardon for my voices. First of all, I would like to congratulate and thank Professor Pankaj Chandra for eloquent and excellent presentation. I'm really impressed of his accomplishment and today's deliberation. My small query is particularly your suggestion. Maybe you may not have a yes or no answer at this point of time, but I would like to put on a flag on the same issue as the Vice Chairman of Open University put up, that is about the governance. Our universities all are have a independent status and statutory institution built by separate law, and then they have everything autonomous in terms of legal provisions. But in reality, all the senates are headed by Prime Minister. Chancellor is Prime Minister and Co-Chancellor is Education Minister, and they are appointed by the Chancellor, the Vice Chancellor, who are executive head, day-to-day handle the leadership, take the leadership of the university, actually leader of the university, and they are appointed by the Chancellor. And the search committee is constituted by the Education Minister, and the search committee recommends 3 persons, and the one is picked up by the Prime Minister. Or frankly speaking, and no one without having a very strong political party connections is able to reach in the vice chairman, and forget about vice chairman, about the dean universities or the rectors or registrar, exam controller even, and they have some sort of the party linkages. If someone goes without the interest of a big political party, they are very strong student and professors unions, and they start protesting and then padlocking the office of Vice Chancellor or the exam controller or dean, whoever they were appointed, and then start disturbing the education activities. This goes on each and every university. We are really, this is like a pandemic. And then how do you suggest? You mentioned earlier that I just, if I correctly recall your presentation, that you have no any political leader in your university board. Do you suggest the Nepal University come up with entirely independent board or senate without the Prime Minister, without the Education Minister in the board, and the whether in our culture where the students and teachers all are labeled in one party or another political party, and then they behave based on their political prejudice and biases, and then how that Vice Chancellor, who has no any linkages with the higher political echelon, would handle the socio-political issues that crop up in the university. If we keep away from our governance structure, if we put them in the structure as it is now, and then there is a little hope to reform, because that the who appointed there comes with a big baggage of political tag, and then any reform he or she start to introduce would be objected by the opponents, or sometimes the would not allow him or her to proceed. That's why in such a kinds of the pandemic politicization of the university governance, would you suggest your learned your experience can have some sort of the guidelines for the Nepal University to devise its governance structure, the particularly higher level governance structure?
Right. So we can thank you. I think it's a very important question. In my mind, this is the most important question. And Dr. Karki, I have time, as much time as you have.
Okay.
Not to worry.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this is, I think, the most important question. If we get this question that Mr. Mani asked right, then I think the future of University of Nepal is secured. Otherwise, it will become like any other one over a period of time. So one, just to mention, we not only don't have anybody on our board, as a university in 12 years, we have never invited a politician onto our campus. Okay, for anything, not for any inauguration, not for tea, not for dinner, not for a speech, not for anything. And it means that there's sometimes we lose out on certain benefits that we could have gotten. But that's a price to pay for actually living through it. This is very much a situation in India too, Mr. Mani, for most of the public institutions. I have a short run answer and a long run answer. Why University of Nepal is very fortunate, because it is just about being born. And I think there's at least a chance to let this university be born right and not born wrong. If we recognize that there are challenges in the past, and all that you've said is correct. I completely understand, because I've seen that in India very much. But so if we can get the charter right by convincing the senior bureaucrat and the prime minister that this is important, to give this kind of freedom, and the prime minister, if the prime minister can walk away from not being the chancellor of the university, I think it will go very long ways in developing processes and developing an environment which are very autonomous and independent. But it will need to have the blessings of such a person. And I think one of the things that can be done, and they may all know, I'm sure they're all very well educated at best of places, but maybe a team can go visit US and some of the institutions there that have flourished so dramatically, to understand what does it take to build an University of Nepal has. And I think in the short run, it will mean that you will not get the kind of resources and support. Perhaps you don't need the kind of faculty and the kind of students who are there in regular universities. They're faculty who want peace and who want to do teaching and research. They're students who want to do the same. The job would be to search them out and remain under the radar, remain a little bit not a very high profile institution. High profile, I mean media wise, not high profile in terms of what it does. And I think once the university establishes and starts showing results, the larger society will probably protect it. But having said that, universities remain vulnerable all their lives, even when they're 100 years old or 200 years old. They are so much dependent on the goodwill of people within and people outside. So it would be very important to bring the first set of leaders and first set of faculty who have the right perspective, right values, right ways of thinking, and then give them the charter to build it in the institution. The culture of the place can be the only protector of the university. And even after doing that, there's no guarantee anyways that we would be able to safeguard the institution in the future. We can only do best by really remaining very honest to it. But it will require the blessings of the serious politicians, for sure.
And just to supplement with what Professor Chandra has said, is the University of Nepal is working on its legal bill, which is more towards having a autonomous board of trustees that will govern the university, and that is the body that will be responsible to appoint the executive team, be it Vice Chancellor or Chancellor or whatever nomenclature we will choose to adapt. And this is already thoroughly being discussed among our team members. So the good thing is there is always one university in the western part of Nepal that is it's already in establishment following the same principle of Board of Trustees, which is a major departure from the practice of making the head of the government as the chancellor of the university. And there is another university by the name of Madan Bhandari University of Science and Technology, whose bill is in the parliament at present. They too are passionately advocating the value of having an autonomous governance structure. So University of Nepal will probably have some, less difficult time because the models are already taking shape in the minds of the legislators. I am wondering if Professor Chaitanya Mishra is still here. Would you like to make some comments, sir? Chaitanya sir, are you around? Maybe he has left. How about Suriraj Acharya?
Hello. It's my turn.
Yes,
Dr.
please
Kaki?
go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Kaki. I thank Professor Chandra and also congratulate for very insightful and also practically much relevant to us. Sometimes when I was listening him, that took me back to some brainstorming about this University of Nepal in terms of its governance, in terms of curriculum, interdisciplinarity, all the keywords I can find in Professor Chandra's this presentation. And most important is that we're discussing just in abstract sense, but in Professor Chandra's lectures, it's out of his experience, it's hand-on experience rather, and from the practical insights. So it's very valuable for us. And as Vice Chancellor Leknath already noted, this India and Nepal, we have a very similar cultural context, political context, and even in these educational cultures, because most of our predecessors, this educationists and all 2, 3 older generation professionals were trained in India. And myself also, I did my university from India. And when I listen him, it's much of this opportunity, challenges, and all this way forward. We are very much on the same page. And I hope Professor Chandra's this insight and experience is also as an asset for University of Nepal. And I look forward this for the collaboration. I'm also the member of this University of Nepal Development Board. And we look forward to more productive and long-lasting partnership. With that, thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Kaki.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Acharya. May I request Dr. Mita Pradhan to share her observation. Mita
Thank
ji.
you very much. I'm also recovering from COVID and I have a horrible, horrible cough. So I'm not going to speak much. I just wanted to thank Professor for an excellent deliberation. It was, there were a lot of new things and there were a lot of very inspiring, positive experiences that we can learn from. And I'm really looking forward to more deliberations and communication in future to sort of, find clarity in looking at the details of how we might be able to learn from your experiences and to take the University of Nepal forward. The political influence in much of what we do here in Nepal and the increasing political interference, despite the changes in our federal structure, is one of the most frustrating elements for me. And I see that in the way my children who are now in their 20s also talk about how difficult it is for them to think about coming back to Nepal because they both studied abroad. And even though I studied in many different places, at least in my generation, I had a lot of opportunities to really learn and really enjoy the work that I ended up doing and I'm continuing to do. And by creating a more realistic but a very inspiring opportunity for young people in the future, where they see the opportunities in Nepal and they're able to actually fight it out on the basis of principles and intellect. That is what my hope is. And that is where people like you and your experiences will help us in the coming days. And I really look forward to that. And thank you, Dr. Karki, for giving me this opportunity.
Sure, I'm sorry to hear that you had a COVID, and as a physician, I should automatically be concerned about it. Please, I wish you that you get well soon. In the talk, Professor Chandra mentioned several times the issue of climate change and environment and water and so on and so forth. We have a colleague who is based in Germany, Dr. Maheshwar Rupaketi, who is affiliated with the Institute of Advanced Sustainability Studies. I would like him to say a few things here. Maheshwarji.
Thank you, Arjun sir, for calling. And thank you, Professor Chandra, for a very insightful, talk. I was listening throughout the talk, though I'm still on working hours here. I was really impressed with that. Yeah, of course, the climate change, sustainability issues are the defining challenges of our time. We all should be concerned about it, and this is where the University of Nepal, we would like to we'd like to collaborate with, being from the Sustainability Institute in Germany, in addressing those issues, which is very prominent over that region. If you look at the Himalayan region, it's a direct hit of the climate change impacts, while we are kind of least prepared for the risk. So that's the overall grand challenges of our time, and then we should be all working towards understanding it, and then this is so multifaceted, so that requires disciplinary and interdisciplinary understanding of the problem, and also the solutions, including the policies to address it. And beyond that, since Dr. Karge already called me, back of my head, I was thinking about a question that triggered, since I was listening to Professor Chandra's talk, being a Nepali sitting in a German academic ecosystem where education is free for all, whether you are in grade 1 or in a PhD, the education is free for all. And in a point of your presentation, you mentioned about the quality education, needs money, needs resources. And I was thinking whether you were thinking about that cost coming from the students. Being in a German ecosystem, research ecosystem, academic ecosystem, where education is provided, free of cost, and of course, we get a, high quality education here. It's fully supported by the government. So that's one side I was thinking, and on the other side, Nepal's constitution has a provision to build a base for moving towards social systems, the socialism, and if you look at the ground reality in Nepal, where we call the universities are public, but you have to pay for the education, right? So I'm always wondering, sitting, having my legs in 2 different continents and then 2 different systems, how can we make our journey towards socialism, especially thinking from the education point of view, where you have to pay for the education. On the other hand, my leg is sitting on a capitalist country where the education is provided, free for all. So how do you basically, since you also come from the similar kind of background,
right.
How do you reconcile these 2 different, aspects, so that our new generation can get a quality education without costing too much for that?
Yeah. No, what
That's
a
my
fascinating question. I think it's you framed it very well. I think that question has been framed very, very well. Ideally, we would like the state to fund everything, right? Ideally, we would like the state to fund it, but we would also not like the state not to interfere. The problem that has, and that's what is happening in a country like Germany, right? That the state funds it, but it gives the responsibility of running of those institutions and making decisions about it to people therein. And it doesn't enter. Our world, unfortunately, has been ruined because we somehow believe that whoever gives money has the right to make decisions. And I think this is really where the challenge in our part of the world is lying. That I think it's not necessary. If we can somehow create an environment where people who give money don't have the right to make decisions, then I think we would win there for sure. And which is true in the private sector also. I'm seeing now private educational institutions where the trustees have given money to come in, but now they want to decide what is the direction of that university. And I think which is very bad too. in that same sense, the same problem as we see in government. My way out of that is as follows. Given that we are not living in either a pure socialist system or a pure capitalist environment, and where there are income inequality, which is very high, at least in India, it's becoming worse now. I want to at least follow the principle of ability to pay. So if my fees is high, let's assume for a moment, if you have an ability to pay, you please pay. If you don't have an ability, if you have an ability to pay half of it, you pay half of it. If you have ability to not pay anything, then you don't pay anything. But I must educate you because you are bright and you are talented and you can come into the university. So that's my solution in this world, because I can't influence the government to put in more money, howsoever hard we may try. Maybe it will happen in future. But today, the way to deal with it is really, if you keep your fee, which is way below cost, then I think the university will face challenges until unless you have managed to put an endowment which actually bridges that deficit. So I'm not at all suggesting that we should recover, the quality should come from fees. No way. But we must have alternative mechanism of raising funds from the society, from philanthropists, from foundations, which become part of an endowment that will provide the needed funds to educate those who don't have resources. But those who come in big fancy cars actually ought to pay for educating others also in our society. So that's my thinking on this. Otherwise, what will happen is we will never be able to pay faculty appropriately. And if we don't pay faculty very well, then good people will not come, very average will come. We won't have labs, we won't have other things that institution needs to run quality program. That's my way out of this.
Thank you, Professor Chandra. Very, very reassuring approach to such complex question.
Right.
We have a colleague in this audience who shares my name, who used to be the ambassador to the United States earlier, and very big supporter of this initiative. Dr. Karki, would you like to say something here?
No, thank you very much for putting me in the spotlight, but thank you very much. I'm just here to listen. Expert opinion.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. If you are not too keen, then let me ask one of our young colleagues, Dr. Asim Dhakal, if he wants to share something. Asim, are you there? Asim? Maybe he may have stepped out. Can I request Dr. Krishna Pahadi to share his observation?
Thank you very much. Actually, Dr. Karki, I think there is a lot on your side today as well, because I'm also recovering from COVID.
Okay.
So as a physician, you have many people to think about. But anyway, I'm perfectly fine. Even though I'm recovering, I'm okay. Thank you, Professor Chandra, for sharing your very valuable insights. We share similar context. And many of us, as Dr. Acharya mentioned earlier, we have also been trained in India. For example, I am myself an engineering graduate from India in Chandigarh in the early 80s. So while in my humble experience, while the engineering education in India has been very robust, it made a very rigorous education, the way we have been trained. So we have been able to do the engineering job very well. But later we realized just being able to do the engineering job is not enough. So the real world is much larger than that. So as an engineer, we should also be aware of the social issues, gender issues, and evolving these climate change, environmental issues, and all that. That's why the liberal arts approach you have been taking, I think it's very, very useful. And then we are also, it seems, at University of Nepal ourselves, we are also along the similar line. So I already raised a question about giving a quality education, at the same time, making sure this education can also reach out to the common people at large. Yeah. So that's a big challenge, and your perspective on this, particularly on the endowment fund, I think it's a very important one. If we just rely on the fees from the students, we are not going to succeed on that. So we'll take these points very well, and of course we'll be reaching out to you in the future as well for your kind suggestions and advice as you go forward. Thank you very much.
Most welcome. Happy to help any which way.
Thank you, Dr. Pahari, for your sharing the observation. I think we are still running short of time. We said we shall try to finish it by 8 o'clock or so, but the discussion is going so well. I could not resist my temptation to let it go, to let it flow, you know.
That's
so
fine.
Those of you who need to go, please feel free if you are pressed with time. But Professor Chandra is such a very hectically busy person.
No, not.
So we use this opportunity to continue the discussion. While I was listening to your question, I had few questions in my own mind, so I better quickly get it clarified with you. Number one is you said, while you wanted to retain the old faculty, old meaning from the previous institution, because they were excellent teachers and all this, and they had this, one set of strength, but you wanted to have the other people with the other set of strength, which is primarily, research and all this. And you said you hired about 100 faculty. Question one, were there any resistance from within for having brought the, from outside, even outside India? And some are of Indian origin, some are even non-Indian origin. Was there any kind of a resistance you felt or not? That is number one. Number two, you said one of the reasons they came there was because they wanted to see a new institution being built.
Right.
And they wanted to be a part of that evolution. That is obviously very strong incentive. But how about the incentive part, the financial incentive part? Does that play a major role as well, or that is not something they would care too much about?
Yeah. So let me answer these two first, and then you can ask more. Let me answer the second one first. Yes, I think first and foremost, we have to realize that if we don't pay appropriately, people won't come. Our compensation is not comparable to anything that rest of the world gives. But within the country, I think we are definitely very good. That's number one. But second thing that we've done is, and this is where autonomy is important, we established that if you have merit and if your performance is good, you can outstrip your compensation over a period of time from everybody else who may have joined at the same time. So what is happening is there are many people who are joined, but they're all at different compensation levels, because every year the incentives and rewards are based out of performance, and people have moved. So I think compensation is very important. We should not undermine it at all, because, and not for any other reason, but my reason is that academics are very high quality professionals. They need to be paid well in the society if we want to. Otherwise, good people will never want to become academics. They'll go to other professions. And I think if I have more resources in times to come, I will definitely raise the compensation even more in times to come. So that definitely is one part. Can you're frozen for me, so I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, good. On the first question of resistance, actually, this was my fear also coming in. And I was coming in from an institution which was research driven. The word around here was, oh, here is a person who will actually throw people out. And I felt that I needed to buy the trust of everybody if I wanted to bring about the change that I wanted to make. And I wanted to, if I have to buy I get the trust, win the trust of people and make them not feel afraid of being at the university. Because if they had gone away, the word would have gone out also that, oh, in future people can get thrown pretty badly. And by the way, we did ask people to leave also. It's not that we didn't ask people to leave. But by and large, okay. I actually, I think maybe it was a private institution, so there was not going to be too much of resistance as opposed to a public institution. But second, by securing the future of this legacy faculty, we ensured that the resistance was reduced very, very dramatically, if at all it was there. Because they also saw that we are not getting thrown out and the future was there. So, and as a result, there were some who became research oriented, some who over the last 6 years actually started supporting the administration and our activities very well. And there's some who are getting left behind. And slowly those who are getting left behind are realizing themselves that better people have come in, they don't have any hope, so they better go find a place for themselves somewhere else. So I think we could win in this kind of situation. And I think we could establish our trust. That was, in my mind, the most central part of this effort.
The one related question to this is, do you have some kind of, for the lack of better word, trade unions among the teachers and the staff, which has been a major challenge managing here in the higher education institutions in Nepal?
Right. So
you don't have that problem. You're nodding head.
No, we don't. You know, I think this is the same as the situation in Indian public institution. But I must say one thing. This is where being a private institution must come into, or an institution that has a very different charter must play a role. We don't have any union and we don't plan to have any union. But I also realize that if we bottle up everybody's perspective, then one day it will blow up on my face. So we have to be very transparent. We have to listen to people. We have to make changes. We have to at least explain why we are not going to be able to do what they want, and explain to them very rationally. My feeling is if we continue doing it, there will not be a need to have a union. Having said that, I think the Private Universities Act in India allows us to ask people to leave. And we built that into the code of conduct very strongly, that if there is violation which hurts the university, then, and there's a repeated violation of that kind, then the university can take this action. And we have defined a process. So it has to be transparent, process-driven, fair, and we can probably ask people to leave.
And there is no retaliation against the university.
I think we are maybe small enough at this point of time. And my hope is that as we build enough internal strength where most people believe this, and most people are driven by performance and outcomes, and as we keep bringing in new and new people, I think we will see a lot of support from us. The country is also changing a little bit. I think now everybody has become tired of the unions, and we are seeing what the challenge is. We are giving, for instance, then there are people who we would like to leave. We're giving them a severance package and getting them to leave. So I think there are many mechanisms where lots of new, especially in administration, large number of people we are hiring on long-term contracts. And only after they give, we see that they're part and parcel of the aligned with the thinking that you will then make them permanent. With faculty also 6 years.
Yeah.
But I don't think I can write off such challenges in future.
Right. No, I understand. Professor Alok Bohra is still with us. Would you like to say something, Professor Bohra, before I turn it to Professor Dr. Purna Adhikari? Professor Bohra, are you there?
I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm doing my morning walk. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
It's cold. I'm enjoying the conversation. Wonderful ideas. I shared a few of my own 2 cents.
No, we'll
like to reach out to me, please.
We look forward to learn and benefit from your experience, Professor Bohra.
No problem. After being at the faculty level at different levels for 30 plus years and having taught in Nepal, I think you and I have had some conversation at Mike's Place breakfast. So yes, please do reach out to me. And I'm really, really excited to see something like this taking off in Nepal. Wonderful, and congratulations.
Thank you, Professor Bohra.
No problem.
Great. Thank you. Carry on your morning walk.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I think we are slowly getting to the, towards the end of the session. Before I give my final remarks, I would like to ask Dr. Bindu Lohani who is one of our advisor to this University of Nepal initiative, to give his concluding remarks.
Well, thank you very much.
Dr. Lohani, please.
I won't say this is a concluding remark because I missed about 45 minutes of great presentation. I had to go to another Zoom, came back. Whatever I have heard from Professor Chandra is excellent. But having said that, let me make few remarks from my own, from two perspectives, having one time being in academics in international setting, not in one country faculty, 50 country faculty, 50 country students, resources from all over the world coming in, but the institute has no money of its own. I mean, that's one kind of context. And then gone to the development bank where there was a lot of money. And I think then we were talking to the countries, what kind of things you want, including education reform, which sometime we want in many countries and the countries didn't want. So having listened to Professor Bora, the evolution and the historical perspective, my take on this is many countries, Nepal for sure, needs not an education evolution reform, it is a transformation, complete transformation. That's why what Professor Chandra said, we have the advantage of a new university. You don't need to reform, you don't need to fire people, you don't need to do so many things. So Dr. Karki, as a leader, you have, I think I consider this a great opportunity. Having said that, there are a few things obviously that came in our mind. We, you know, when I started in India, Professor Chandra, I was in BITS Pilani, did very well. You know, I was even #1 in the school, got the medals. But what I felt was they prepared me very well with education, theory, engineer. I could do the work. They didn't prepare me as a great personality. I could hardly present like you, Dr. Karki, speak like you before. And even when I had to talk to some people, my face turned red. So they didn't create me as a personality. But then what happened was Mr. Birla, who was in 65, probably one of the two rich person, he came to our first batch and said, induction session, you know, we had a good school. I think it's ranked pretty well in India, he said, but I'm not happy with the good. I want to be, people tell me there's a school called MIT, which is excellent in engineering. So I want you guys to really have a BITS MIT joint program. So we were in that program. The advantage of that I saw was one, they taught us something outside engineering, which was not in the curriculum. That's why we had to take a course in economics, social science, history, and whatever, depending on the need. And the MIT guys created an English laboratory. They say, most of you guys don't speak properly. We teach you phonetics, because at the end of the day, it will be important to have a presentation skill. Of course, I must admit that at that time, I didn't pay too much attention to the social courses, history courses, but they forced us. And we still got an A grade, etc., but we had really no heart. But then I realized how important it was. So what I'm trying to say here is, Dr. Karki, I think we have learned from Professor Chandra's presentation, we have to have, no matter what discipline you teach, a broad base as a part of it. Whether you call interdisciplinary, whether you call liberal arts, or etc., you need to prepare for the 21st century, not only your core field, but the additional one. So I think one thing that comes out very clear for a new university. The second thing is that we, you know, since we do in the development business, we've been looking at many education-related research. A lot of graduates of today, when we recruited, we find they have degrees, they have bachelor's, master's, PhDs, but they have no skills. This is a worry. I mean, you know, I interview many people at the manager's level, entry level. They say, by the way, what can you do? When I ask that question, they say, sure, I have a master's degree in this field. And I say, I didn't ask you that. I don't care. What can you do? And that person repeats. Now, my take on that is, You know, I was a great engineer. I got an American engineering license, but I can't do the detailed engineering work that I could do then. People need to keep on learning. So lifelong learnability should be emphasized, because what you learn as your degree, my first degree, is no longer as good for me than what I have learned over the years. So this kind of training in the new university, Dr. Karki, I think we need to include, and I think we heard that today. We need to look at the 21st century challenges, and there are enough. Dr. Karki mentioned sustainability issue. No matter what field you study, you need to be a part of that. Technology, you need to be a part of that, etc., etc. The fourth, what we also learn is, if you are a new university, and this I learned from the Asian Institute of Technology, where I was about a decade in the faculty and the head of department, it's better, if you're a new university, better start with a reputed university, a program, at least, just like the BITS Pilani did the MIT. But I think if you're going to do a sustainability program, if you want to do in Germany, which is best university, or maybe another field from another university, I strongly suggest the University of Nepal consider this as a starting point, or something even with Ahmedabad University, if we find it so relevant. The fourth thing I like to say is, we had done a lot of study on how to become an excellent university. Hundreds of pages of report, millions of dollars spent, but it brings a very common sense conclusion. 4 things. You need to have excellent students. Excellent students. You need to have excellent faculty, excellent, lots of money, and governance. Now let me mention a few on this. If you get the excellent student, there are reports, there are research done, that even if you have a really average or even a bad faculty, sometimes we do have that. You know, I used to lecture in some Ivy Leagues in Harvard, and I found some of the faculties were terrible. But the students were so bright, no matter, they would still get an A on that. I think we also had some bad professors when I was studying in the IT or in the US, but we still got A because students were good. So should not compromise on getting a good student, excellent student. And to do that, I think you said last time also, you know, some needs funding, some don't. So it should be a blind way of doing it. So we need to make sure that all admitted excellent students have funding. So this is a challenge we need to take for ourselves. I know we have no fund. We have to say, how are we going to do this? But we have to do it. So number 2, faculty. I think what I learned from the BITS model and the AIT model is the faculty exchange a great idea. They were not, the Birlaji then said, he knew exactly some faculty who needed upgrading their skills degree. So he said, you go to MIT for a year, I'm getting their professors anyway, 50% of the faculty will be from there. So he paid for them. And I think the faculty development is important. So exchange system, we need to think of day one. Just like we said, joint degree, joint excellence. Third, we said the government, that a lot of governance issues came in. Dr. Karki, if we cannot get a full autonomy, if the prime minister or the politician are going to be the chairman of the board, don't open university anymore in Nepal. I think we don't need it. So we just need to be very firm on that. Professor Chandra also said, we don't need trade union. Yeah, we don't need trade union. We don't need politically motivated students. They can be politically motivated outside the campus. They can be aligned to the parties. In US, you have Republicans, you have Democrats, but inside the campus, no politics. But having said that, no trade union. Universities also have problems. You know, like all institutions, you have sometimes some promotion, people complain about promotion, staff complains about compensation. You need to have a governance structure like an ombudsperson, a tribunal, or a dispute mechanism system. Sometimes first within the institution governance, the vice chancellor, etc., and there may be even acquisition against the vice chancellor. So we will need a tribunal, which consists of totally a outside group to look at the issues when it is beyond the responsibility of the university. I hope that gets into your act the university act, that all grievances would be resolved first within the means of the university system. And if that is not done, there will be a tribunal picked up to 3 individuals who will make the decision. That's the end of it. That should be the end of it, and no more court issues after that. So that governance structure would be, in my opinion, should put in. I also believe that no faculty should be on a tenure basis. I like contracts 4 or 5 years, whatever. You keep on renewing them for the whole life, but do not say you are a tenured professor, so you can sleep now. You don't have to publish anymore. You don't have to teach. I've seen a lot of my friends in Ivy schools in the US. I'm a tenured professor. I can do what you like. I don't think we want that, and we can afford that anymore. So no tenureship of the faculty is my point. Now, on the compensation side, Professor Pankaj said he's willing to increase it. We should be. One model for a poor country like us and a poor university, at this moment we are poor, Dr. Karki, sorry, University of Nepal, is to think of a faculty, and that's where we need international donors. The Asian Institute of Technology, Dr. Suryaraj knows, their model was, if I want a German faculty to work in my AIT or in future University of Nepal, I like Germans to pay their salary, and I don't want to know about it. I know it is going to be a lot more than my local faculty, and that's the system. You take care of that, but I just need the person. So that's one way to do the compensation, to make sure you bring international students. Similarly, if you have some Indian, Nepalese, who are international citizens, their donors are willing to fund them, they could come to us. A lot of Nepalese could come under a US funded, UK funded, German funded basis, so that they can get the compensation which they're getting there. The other model that we found suitable, and since we have to go to the donors to ask money, that if you send one faculty, can you also pay for one faculty, the local faculty? The way to sell that is your capacity building. You're helping to build the capacity of the local university, so they will also pay a little bit more. So I think there are lots of these kind of models that we have, which we, in my opinion, need to practice. And finally, I think what you have said, many of the things very applicable. The biggest challenge for us is we don't have the money, which you have, the private sector give. I was talking to another new university a few months ago, the Vishwakarma University. You know, they seem to be also supported like you by a group of private sector, and they have no problem with money. But he started linking with all the international universities around, and he was able to make the pie even bigger. I think that kind of model, so we have no money, but we need to get public funds to the extent, like Professor Chandra said, if they don't interfere our system, if they are going to interfere the system, Dr. Karki, we have a bigger challenge of finding the funds somewhere. I don't know where, but at this beginning stage, we say we do have even a bigger challenge, and we have to try to get that. I will stop here. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Lohani, for your very, as always, words of wisdom and very rich perspective, which we have already always benefited from. Before I give my final words for a few minutes, I have forgot to ask Dr. Purna Adhikari. He wanted to ask a question. Dr. Adhikari, please, my apology for forgetting you.
I have a question to both you and Dr. Chandra. Whether you can put up a team, Dr. Karki, to visit Ahmedabad University, and whether Professor Chandra would be willing to host a small group, 3-4 persons.
You are most welcome. We'll be very happy to host you here and share with you whatever we have been doing so far.
Yeah,
please do come.
I'm very much interested because a lot of the things what you are talking today and what Dr. Bindu Lohani has talked has very much gone in my line of thinking, and I had already suggested this to another university in Nepal, but somehow that has gone out. I hope that University of Nepal will take some of these ideas. And in that, I would like to see that maybe we could have some kind of collaboration with you to start with.
Sure. Most welcome. We can talk about it for sure.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, that's.
Thank you, Dr. Adhikari, for bringing in very practical steps in the proposed very close collaboration with the Ahmedabad University and the University of Nepal. So this is an acknowledgement, Professor Chandra, as to you have witnessed how much interest there is to get insights from and some learning experience. And the university, we say it's a learning organization, so we need to be open-minded and be on the lookout for innovative approaches wherever there are. And especially it is so important to have it from our neighborhood because the cultural, socio-cultural context is so similar.
Yeah.
So we have, it has been a great meeting, great webinar. You have been so kindly and so graciously shared your rich experiences that was based on the real practical, hands-on experience, so to say. It is nothing coming out of the book or theoretical, even though we are eagerly looking to to read your book.
Sure.
Building universities, that matters, So what, as you have already said, and Dr. Adhikari has pointed out, we need to learn the details more, more concrete things, so that we could really grasp the concept at a more concrete level and see which are the ideas that we could potentially incorporate and implement in our local context here.
Sure.
We being the, a public university, at least proposed public university, and which we cannot do it right now. We may have to put it aside for the time being. So this is just the beginning of the dialogue. We cannot finish everything in, one webinar. And Dr. Adhikari even proposed to visit Ahmedabad University. Maybe some of our colleagues from our team could accompany him. And we likewise, once we reach a certain stage, we would like to invite a group of colleagues from your university, Professor Chandra, so that we can build up a very trustful and mutually gratifying kind of a collaboration in the time ahead. And we could, depending upon how, issues come up, where we see no solution, we get sometimes thought blocked, and with your permission, we'd like to tap on your brain, so to say.
Anytime, by all means.
So thank you so much for your time and for your generosity to come and speak before our colleagues, before our audience. And this is just the beginning. It is not an end. We shall continue our dialogue, and together we shall bring a true new changes in the higher education in South Asia.
Indeed.
Joining hands together, joining hearts together, joining minds together.
Indeed.
So with this, I would like to thank everyone, our colleagues who had managed to spare their valuable time and stay so long to listen to our conversation. Thank you, everyone. And let's call it the end of the day. And good night. And please be well and stay safe. This is not a great time the COVID is attacking from every corner. So try to protect yourself and your family. Thank you very much and good night.
Bye-bye. No.
And namaste. Namaste.
Namaste. Okay.
Good night.